Hello, my name is Jason Spanu, DJ Shine from WaveDNA, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about the push control script for Liquid Rhythm. I'm going to enter user mode, and instantly I'll be able to navigate through the parameters of the drum rack. So I'm focused on a drum rack, I've got an empty clip, and in Liquid Rhythm we're looking at that same clip, okay? And the tempo dial here lets me change which sort of track lane or MIDI note I'm going to be on. So I can see right now that on the display here, as I turn it, I'll be able to know which track name I'm on, and that's all, again, the same assets that are living inside the drum rack, okay? So if I look over here, you can see same idea, okay? Also, there's sort of like a two-way communication going on between the drum rack and Liquid Clips. So if I select, let's say, the snare here, you can see that when I flip over, I'm going to be on the third tick in, and that's what this little viewer is giving us. It's a visual feedback of the actual track I'm focused on, right? And we'll see when I start actually inputting some information into my beatform sequencer here. I'm going to put these guys will be there every 2 and 4, right? Little X goes on there. And the X is going to let me know that I've got MIDI notes in that track. So I'm going to draw in some kicks. Cool. So I have these two X's, and I know which one's going on. If I actually hit the mute button up here, I'll get an M, and that'll let me know that that track's been muted. Also, solo. We'll solo that track. Okay. So as I dial through, I'll be able to find, maybe I'll find the hi-hat next and dial in some beat forms here. Add some triplets at the bottom. Cool. As well, I could use my bar form list on the side here and just shoot through a number of pre-suggested patterns for that MIDI note number. So we know it's a hi-hat, and we've got suggestions based on the fact that we think that's going to be a suitable pattern for hi-hats. Now I've got 8 in this row. If I hit shift, I'll get the next 8 of the list. Kind of like that. Moving on, maybe I'll find some shakers and just dial those in again by manually. Now I'm just going to flip back into live and take a look at that one device and tune the sound a bit. Pop back into Liquid Rhythm mode. Now this is going to give us an idea here. If I solo this, I'm looking at the hi-hat pattern. I'm going to use my arrow keys here to zoom in so I can see what's going on. So that's my shaker, actually. I'm going to pop to my accent modifier page here. Now in the accent modifier page, I'll be able to play with the accents, and these are these shaded colors here. So right now I've got two colors. I've got like a dark blue and a light blue. Using the molecule tools, or if I go on my push to the groove mover here, I'll be accessing the groove mover. And I'll be able to flip through the color sort of underlying beds, if you will, distribution of the different shades, right? So these are all the different sort of ideas, and I'll actually make it be like that. So just to really quickly look at this, we've got 3 different shades, okay, and each of these shades are going to be relative to how I play with distributing information of velocity and groove timing, okay? So this is my accent modifier tool, and if I access that by this button on push, I can see that there's sort of 3 pages at the bottom here. So obviously you have velocity, and that's going to be this information here. And you'll notice that where I go is going to highlight the different clusters because they're sitting on dark, medium, or light shades of whatever color, okay? So if I bring down this knob on Liquid Rhythm, I can actually change the strong here, right? And let's just hit play and hear that. So it's kind of like throwing some groove into the mix, okay, which is kind of neat. And because I've got 3 different shades playing, I'll be able to muck around with maybe the medium, Go with the weak. Right? And that's how it sits on this grand bar form. So that's what we're looking at, like the different shades of that bar form. I can hit the bar form button and it toggles between bar form and beat form. So right now when I'm in beat form mode, I'll be playing with the shades that are above as they sit in the clusters that we call beat forms, okay? So same thing, I may want to find a different beat form that's going to have a little more color in it. So if I go with my triplets, spray them around every once in a while in the sequencer. Maybe shuffle these guys, I think. Play with these knobs. I'll find a really interesting sort of outcome for that. Let's see how it plays against the rest of my beat. Unsolo. It's got a bit of a head bobbing quality, right? To zoom in all the way, I'll keep my finger on it. To zoom out all the way, I'll keep my finger on it. I can also hold down the shift, and that'll zoom all the way in or all the way out. Okay? So this is kind of neat. What if I duplicate the clip? Okay, so I hit the duplicate button, and that's going to, in Ableton, duplicate the clip, and in Liquid Rhythm, show me the new clip. Okay, so I'm able to play around with, maybe I'll find a different thing I can do to my pattern of the kick. And again, I'm sort of feeling that I could probably be a little bit more interesting with the way that groove sits. So I'm going to go back to my accent modifier again and play with the strong. Now this brings us to the shaper. And what the shaper is all about is being able to play with these shapes. And the shapes are how we're going to distribute a ramping effect of the velocity, right? And how it's applied. So I can have it slope up or slope down. You can see as I start playing with my velocity again, they're going to sort of be distributed in that sort of like that angular way. So now if I wanted to make the beat a little more busy so I could actually show you how that curve is, I'm going to go to my beat form tumbler, and that's going to let me tumble through a bunch of different possibilities per step. So I'm on step 6 right now, and you can see that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll dial in that guy. And then play with the accent modifiers. The choices I get from my tumbler are relative to which palette I'm focused to. So if I hit the palette plus or palette minus buttons, I'll be able to tumble through my choices that are shown in the beatform palette here. Okay, so if I take a look at that, I'll be able to zing through some of these choices. Maybe I'll stay in standard right now just to keep things simple. Okay? As I play with that, I have two modes. I have position mode and I have beat mode. Okay? Position mode resembles the way the accent modifiers work by having strong, medium, and weak positions. Okay? So as I dial these in, no matter what the objects were in my beat form, I'll be able to tumble through, right, the shades. If I'm on my tumbler, the same thing is going to happen. You see that those notes in those positions only are being substituted, right? They'll grow through as we change through. How this operates is also relative to what state my groove mover is in and where my shades are being distributed. So I get some interesting results this way. Remember, I can always mute. Go back to my accent modifier. I'm going to hit the reset button and make sure they're all pretty loud. You know what? They're sort of in the medium right now. I'm just going to turn the all knob. Let's make this a little more interesting though. I'm going to zoom out. So remember, shift, zoom out. And I'm going to go to the first page, the arranger and view. Okay, we haven't really looked at these yet. So the arranger and the view let me get into copying and pasting and editing functions. And the view, again, sort of helps me move around. I'm looking at what I'm looking at. So zoom to fit makes that zoom all the way in. Zoom default brings me back to like a default state. Loop toggle, that's actually the turning on the loop brace or not. Okay. And loop select is how we define our loop selection. There's a relationship between loop select and select all. So if I said select all, and then go to my side here and you hit the double button, that's going to duplicate that loop. And I can select all again, so I'm going to have 2 bars selected. I would double it. I've got 4 bars selected, but I'm only really looping the first bar. Let me select it all again, and now because those are all selected, I'll flip into loop select at the view mode. And now my loop brace has fit, and I'll be able to zoom out to see that all 4 bars are being looped. So that's kind of cool. So let's just play that clip. So everything's pretty much the same for 4 bars. I'd like to zing through these and start maybe just changing up a couple little things. So as we go through, just on the snare pattern, I'm going to flip bar by bar. The other way I can do this is by hitting the tap tempo button. And what that's going to do is it will start moving that region selector. Okay, so in each bar it's going to change, and my display on push's beatform sequencer will sort of constantly update with that. So it's sort of like following, right? Hit play, you see each bar flipping into another one. 4th. First one. This is a really interesting way of keeping things moving. And I can just turn that off at a moment. Now I'd like to maybe play with my velocities across this whole beat. So let me go back to the first page and hit select row. Okay, I can select the row, which basically takes everything in one, in this case it'll select the difference between the first beat of the loop and the last beat of the loop, right? So I'll be actually selecting all 4 bars in the row that I'm currently focused on. Focused on the snare track here, so if I go select row, all 4 bars are selected, and whatever I do now, even if I hit one of these bar forms, or beat forms, that's going to update all 4 bars, right? So that's going to have maybe an effect I didn't want. Yeah, that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to hit undo, go back to normal, and this time just go to my accent modifiers and play with them across the board. You can see that each one of those is going to be selecting, right? Okay, so instantly I totally want to do this on my shaker track. So let me go up to my shaker track. I'm going to dial using the tempo knob again, up to the shaker track, up, up, up. And I can also see that it's probably going to be that guy on my push or range view here. Oh, that's hi-hat, so the next one up. Shaker, right? Oh, one past it. Cool. So at this point, again, I want to go back to select row. And then go back to my accent modifiers and play with. I'll go back to my groove mover, shuffle that underlying accent beds around, shades, right? Let me just mute the weak and see what happens. That's cool. Now by hitting shift and delete, I deleted the weak notes, and that essentially thinned out my pattern. You can see it got a lot simpler. So shift, zoom back in. Now, as I move around, you'll see that I keep losing focus of having 4 bars selected. So if I'd like to sort of lock that on, I'm going to go to my select row and hold shift. And you notice when I hold shift, it gets into, it sort of capitalizes, right? So I'm going to hit that button now. You'll notice it goes red, and that's telling me that we've latched on to select row mode. Okay, so now I've got all 4 of these bars selected, no matter which note I'm looking at. So I can very quickly add in. So it's a really quick way of step sequencing over 4 bars at the same time with maybe hitting 3 buttons. I'm not going to win the Producers of the Year award with this beat, but it's getting kind of neat. What if I go back and select it all and then hit the double button again? I'm now going to be looking at an 8-bar loop. I'm going to select it all, flip over to View, and hit Loop Selection again. So now I've got all 8 bars selected. Quickly find myself this guy perk, yeah, and I'm going to animate that, make it keep moving, so make like a fill it, make a fill every 4th bar. 3. Another quick way of doing this is by going to the randomizer tool. I'm playing with certain parameters here, so I'm going to tap that, and it's going to turn the beat form on. So that means that a certain amount of this will be feeding the randomizer law. Okay, so this is a little more involved. Basically, you've got a couple different series of parameters, and they all do specific functions, and you can apply the amount of which that function will be added to the Surprise Me button, and when you hit the Surprise Me button, randomization will occur. So depending on which track I'm focused now, or sorry, which bar form, maybe I went in the last one, I'm going to hit that button, throw in some inflection. Another really neat way of doing this is by going to the select column. So I'm going to turn off my follow, zoom out, and go select column. Now, no matter which column I'm in, oh, I got to lock that on, right? So if I'll then shift, select column, I can be in column 4 and hit the randomizer again. Be in number 8 and hit the randomizer again. So that was my randomized stuff. Maybe if I simplify some of this and I go back to the first roll I had. So those are some of the techniques that I've been working with here with this push. The only other thing we haven't really messed around with is this guy, which is the sequencer page. And it's got access to our cycle tool here, right? So if I just move this around, we can see the beat form shifter, okay? And I'll be able to cycle the beat forms that are in a selected area one step to the left or right. So if I didn't like the way that groove was sitting, let's just say on that, I'm looking at this 4th bar. If I hit the loop selection now, I'll only be looping that 1 bar when it catches, actually. So you can see right now, it's going to stay in there. In the sequencer mode, I'm going to hit cycle. And then, again, I'm going to go back to first page, select all. I'm going to decouple the select column and go loop selection. So maybe I'm select all and then back to the view page, loop selection. There's another feature I didn't really show. In the arranger, if I hit Shift and turn any of these dials, I can re-choose which of the choices I'll be able to make that button do. So if I'd like to have copy and select row next to each other and then go back and have little clusters of choices exactly where I want them, we're able to personalize our interface that to suit our individual workflows. So I hope you have a little bit more insight into this device and the way we use it with Look Rhythm. Enjoy.